Day 2 West Coast Classic has finished up. Team competition is over. Individual competition is just getting started, quite frankly. They're halfway through, and we're going to recap everything. I don't know where Patrick is, but when he joins in here, we'll join him. We'll allow him in, of course. Little sunburn, I think. I think almost everyone on site got a little sunburn today. The forecast was overcast, but it ended up getting hot and sunny in the afternoon, which obviously is really nice. But they're long days out there, especially for the judges, volunteers, people like that they don't really get a break. MCs out on the floor all day. We're able to move around a little bit, but still get a little bit of the brunt of the weather. I think we'll start with the team side of things. We went over a lot of stuff yesterday, and basically we just talked about the fact that in this competition, the teams were going to be the best teams are basically going to be the best teams. So let me see if I can find this here. I think I got it. Take a look at the team leaderboard. Did it share? Why didn't it share? Good night. Good night. You're on the East Coast. It's a little later there. So here's the leaderboard for the teams. 7 teams going to the CrossFit Games, and as you can see, I mean, it was pretty tight. Even if you look down to the 10th place team here, well, there's a tie for 9th, 8th, 9th, whatever. From here on up, these teams, all of them, if you look at their event finishes, I don't think there was anything worse than 11th. I think is what I saw. Oh, no, there's 114th Kima on the run, and then they were pretty good from there. But a couple 11ths and pretty much all top 10s. And just speaking to the all the way from Guyana. That's right, still on the East Coast. To the strength of the field at the top. Were there any appeals approved? What's up, Patrick?
Yeah. Yes and yes. There actually were some appeals, but I had a chance to talk to Kiefer, and he said that the Underdogs team that they appealed some of their no reps on the over at squat, and I think I don't know, I believe they only got, it was nothing that was significant where they would move up in a place, and then also heard there was a couple other appeals. I think Brandon Luckett filed an appeal as well, but on something maybe on a legless rope climb. But there were some appeals, and I think for the most part, from what I've heard, most of them were granted, but nothing was significant where they would affect points on a leaderboard, especially on the team side.
Yeah, and I mean, if we're just looking at the cut line there, we can see that from the drop from 7 to 8 is 20 points. And on the team side of things, where they're getting 4 points for place, it's 5 placements, which is within one workout. It's a lot to make up based on an appeal. It could happen, of course, but just kind of looking at the teams that end up making it here at the end of the day, we have the 2 Invictus teams that they were clearly the 2 best teams all weekend long. Three event wins for the top team there, an event win for them, so for an unconquerable. So they take 4 of the 5 event wins, and then the team that sneaks into the 3rd spot on the podium gets their best finish in the final complex, and we have 2 Mexican flags on the leaderboard. Excuse me. We've been talking about the storyline in terms of Mexican teams having an opportunity to punch a ticket for the first time, and they did actually do a good job of this on the broadcast, I believe, of identifying that there are 2 athletes on this team, one from Colombia, one from Argentina, and so it's a Latin American representative team. Excuse me, but Wolfpack also does very well. They end up eking out Einhorn on just a tie break here. Those 5 teams were pretty much in solid positions from the jump. It seemed like they never really gave anything away, and then the battle was down the road from there. Kima had their worst finish on the last event. Well, actually, they bookended with bad finishes, but it was enough to keep them clear of the cut line. And if we went on Instagram earlier today, we talked about these 3 teams being really in a tight race here in that last workout. Overtake Team Density did go for it. They were leading actually after I think the 3rd of 5 rounds. They ended up finishing 3rd in the workout, but it was enough to create the separation that they needed. And I mean, it's tough. This is a tough day for the Underdogs, for Camp Rhino over there. Had to have 2 teams that had pretty good weekends overall, and they both basically end up coming up short by the same amount.
Yeah, I mean, I was able to talk to members of both teams, and yeah, they're bummed, but I think at the same time they realize like, hey, those teams they're fit, and and I think right now it's like there's a lot of fit people on those teams. The good thing is, like for instance, I know like Carson Wolf and CJ Gerald, they had their next, they had some options, so they both had invites to Monster Comp, the Monster Games, so they'll be competing in that at the end of July, I believe, and then there'll be some other opportunities or some of those other athletes on those other teams. Because collectively they are very fit. It's just that these teams are either more experienced or just had, or just fitter. And I think you're going to see that. I mean, you look at the team density team; it's a veteran team. You look at Kima. Travis Williams. What more can you say? I mean, the guy has been to a lot of games. And even the two Mexican teams, they have a lot of games experience on both of those teams. So I think what it came down to was just basically experience. And I think both the Rhino dogs and Service dogs, they were just, a couple more years. I guarantee if these teams, if they run it back somewhat similar teams, they'll see themselves in that mix next year. Looks like HGRSP, how is Angelo's team compared to Invictus? Can it take him down? I haven't seen Angelo's team. You got to see him in person at Crash Crescendo. So, you've seen both teams, obviously different type of tests. But I mean, actually not, because JR does a good job of programming, games type style program competition. So, what's your take on that?
When we're talking about the top Invictus team, we're talking about a team that has the potential to win the CrossFit Games. It's not going to be easy. We know that the Peak 360 team is going to be there. We think that there's going to be a couple teams from Europe. I'm not quite sure how good those teams from Oceania are going to be yet at the games. But Angela's team looked pretty good. They swapped out Molly McGrandy for Kyra Milligan this year. I would say that they're probably still not a podium team.
Yeah.
So I would say that I would give the edge to Invictus. I don't want to discount that team, but I don't think the team field has actually gotten that much weaker across the board from last year. They might not, in terms of meaning the top one or two teams may not be as good as the one or two teams were last year, but they're still pretty good. And there's a couple other teams that are entering the equation that are just as good as those 3, 4, 5, 6 teams were. I think Angela's team was 7th last year. I could see them moving up as high as, perfect scenario, maybe 4th, but I could see the Invictus team, perfect scenario, winning the CrossFit Games. So I would still give the edge to Invictus at this point in the season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I guess we'll see next week how Angelo's team stacks up against the Peak 360 team. Because right now, I think the Peak 360 team, from what I've heard, what I've seen, their pedigree, and not to take anything away from Invictus, I like the programming more for semifinals, more for that Peak 360 than I did for the Invictus team. Invictus team's really good. They have some things. I talked to Chandler. I talked to Lauren Fisher very briefly, and there's some things they got to clean up. And this was a perfect opportunity for that. There were some, I think it was kind of like a running theme. Especially the last two events on the team side is that the judging, and I hate to put it on the judging, and I think they do too, but there were some discrepancies. But at the end of the day, fitness prevails. So a lot of these judges that were here will more likely, I mean, I imagine a good percentage of these judges that were judging here will probably be in Knoxville as well. So we'll see. We'll see if there's any changes in some of the standards. And it's mainly it came down to, it looked like most of the teams, they just wanted consistency. And it seemed like the judges in one lane from the other, they were judging on different things, even on the individual side. I mean, I heard an athlete said their judge was adamant that they couldn't do their double unders on a certain part of the mat, meanwhile all the other lanes were doing it. And it was just some stuff like that. But I don't know if you had a chance to talk to anyone from the judging team or Kevin or anyone like that, but it just even the top teams had something to say regarding some consistencies with the judging.
I did talk to a couple of the judges. before coming back here tonight, and I think they're actually are aware of it, and they're seeking the same things that we are. There's some things that seem like they're very solvable, like the thing with the jump rope. It was very clear to me from the briefing that anywhere behind the rig, on the Dolomer, on the green mat, behind the green mat, seemed to be
Yep.
okay. And we saw athletes doing all three of those things, which is okay. And then we saw one situation where it wasn't okay. And so it just makes me wonder, like, what happened for that one person? What did they not understand? Why wasn't it clear to them? But from a head judge or a team lead of the judges type perspective, like, all you can really do is give the information. And if a judge is there and for whatever reason they're not paying attention during the time that you say that, and then how do you hold them accountable to that? And
Well,
once they take the field of play, I would say, that's kind of on the head judges to be in the right position to and be alert enough to see that there's something going on that shouldn't be going on and make an intervention. Most of the time when I've been watching, the head judges are not they're not really getting involved. They're kind of
right.
until there's maybe a dire situation. But again, I don't know what the directive is that's coming to them about how visible or not they're supposed to be, what they should be intervening or not. So
Mhm.
it's hard on that one for me to necessarily be critical because I don't have all the information.
Yeah.
On the other
I
side of the spectrum, you have specific movement standards, right? And so in this case, the overhead squats was something that was being talked about a lot. We know that squatting depth in general is not necessarily the easiest thing to judge, and it's not the easiest thing to judge because I think the word is anthropometrics, is that people's bodies are built somewhat differently, and that for certain body types, getting the hip crease below the knee is a little bit more challenging, and it doesn't present as beautifully in the process of doing competitive fitness. Nevertheless, that workout basically comes down to the overhead squats. It's a moderate weight for a lot of reps, and if you're in a situation where you're constantly getting no reps for something that you think the people next to you are getting credited for, it can be really frustrating. Um,
Mhm.
I wouldn't say that I was, it's hard to watch the entire thing. There were a lot of no reps going on, and each one of those judges is just watching one athlete. Well, we're watching 10 athletes and
Mhm.
10 lanes, and therefore, 40 different athletes doing overhead squats over the course of the workout, just in every heat. Um, so I don't know. It's hard. Like, judges, a lot of them have a lot of experience. They want to do their job very well. They're definitely having conversations about it during the day, after the day. They're not going out there and trying to do a bad job. It's the opposite of that.
Oh,
So I did see that the teams were frustrated about certain things, but I'm not sure. I'm really not sure how bad or good it was today.
yeah. I mean, I, I don't. I can't really. Like I said, some of those things, are I can't put too much on the judges, but there are certain things. Again, to get to your point, I've been a part of those meetings, those judges meetings at the athlete brief. It can get repetitive and boring. There's a lot of information put it out, but you're correct about it's kind of the head judge's responsibility to kind of notice those things. I don't know how many head judges they had on the floor. I didn't really pay attention. Obviously, I can't put that O on Kevin, especially if he's the only head judge. But I know, there's a reason why the games you don't see discrepancies like that. Especially when it comes to athletes, being at different spots and on the mat for double unders or anything like that, because you'll have three or four head judges, and they break it down by sections, and their eyes on it, and you'll see it during the games. They're very slick about it, but you'll see someone like Todd Whittam. He'll go in there, whisper in that judge, and he'll disappear, and they'll make that correction. I didn't. That's something I have noticed. Like the head judges that we see on the semifinal trail and stuff like that, they need to be more proactive like that. I'm not seeing them do that. I'm seeing them there. I'm not seeing them like helping out their fellow judges. And I don't know if it's just a lack of judges or a lack of eyes on, but the head judges, I think, need to take a little bit more responsibility and get more involved, especially if they see something. But
Yeah,
let's kind
I
of
would
get
say
off that
that's overall
topic.
a fair.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oceania team time seems to be pretty good. Hopefully by game time they will be even better. There are specific teams around the world. PC and I think talked about it at one point today that we're expecting to improve and potentially improve dramatically step by step. Kyra's team is certainly going to be one of those teams, Renata. I mean, that's a team that the more time they spend together, and certainly now that they've made, that they have qualified for the CrossFit Games, they'll be probably getting some more training in. And they'll also be able to maybe, James Newberry in particular, he's one of these guys that he trains for a variety of different things. And when something is on the calendar, then he becomes like really, really good at it in a pretty short amount of time. So if he feels like after this weekend that maybe he's not strong enough or as strong as he wants to be, based on how some things went or just things that he knows about competing at the CrossFit Games, in a 2-month window, he's the type of guy that will be able to get his strength up 10% coming into the games. Kyra obviously having her, that's a great picture, man. Kyra having her family, obviously, but now that she's back in the mix, she's going to want to be the best for her team. So maybe she'll lean into her fitness in a different way than she has been for the past, 6 months or so. Touring Pro seems like such a fun atmosphere on my bucket list. Yeah, it's on ours too.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's just unfortunate. It's one of those things we're gonna have to divide and conquer one of these days. I mean, yeah. Again, talking to Con. I mean, one, how awesome is that hammer?
I didn't even see it at first. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and who better to hold it than freaking the guy that was at one point auditioned to be he was asked to audition to be Chris Hemsworth's body double for Thor Love and Thunder. So it's just kind of funny. But talking to Con, he's like Emily DeRoy is. He says she's a beast.
Did they ask him to do that for the love part of the script?
That's part I would volunteer for. Yeah, it's like I'll be your body double for that. But he said that Emily DeRoy, she's healthy, she's a beast. They've actually gotten really close in terms of like training partners. Kyra has taken ownership as being the leader of that, and who better? I mean, she's been around for a while. She's seen Rich, lead teams. She's she's the perfect person. All three of those athletes, they've committed. They moved down to the Gold Coast to train specifically with Kyra at her gym. So that way it make things easier. I mean, she's the one with the family too, and it's her. She's taken over the captain's spot. She's going to expect nothing but over the next 2 months, then their best. And James Newberry, like you said, if he's focused on one single thing, which he has been so far this year, I can only imagine the next couple months.
PC, is there anything I can do about this?
Oh, what is that?
This guy didn't spell my name right. No, anything that I can do to improve the internet connection?
I mean, I know for a while there you sounded like a robot, but you sound fine now. Does he sound fine now? Someone in the chat, blink twice if he sounds fine now. But
yeah, that's just frustrating to me because I don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, your voice is coming in fine. It's Greg, Glassman says it's fine. It's your picture's kind of pixelated, but your voice is coming in fine. So we'll just keep on going. Yeah. Renata, your connection's good now only one time. Yeah, it was choppy. You turned into a robot there for a moment. But and this is the healthiest Con's been in a while. So we can go back. We can definitely talk about Oceana. We'll definitely preview or recap Oceana team and then talk about the first couple events that just happened while we're here. Obviously, some of you are probably still watching it right now, sharing. But in terms of team, Brian, anything else regarding team?
No, I mean, I think these seem to be the best teams here this week. If 7 spots are available, and all of them, I think, different reasons to be excited for the CrossFit Games. So kind of a pretty straightforward team competition. Couple places were up for grabs in that final, but Overtake Team Density kind of flexed their veteran experience, especially with the worm. I don't think they went for touch and goes ever, where a lot of the teams were doing that. They just steady singles the entire way. And Marco, Casey, going back to the games for I don't know how many times, man. Those guys have been around forever. I mean, Marco competed here in Carson on a team in 2016, so they've been doing it a long time.
Yeah, and then you have someone like Brooke Haas who's been kind of out of it for a while. She came back with that move fast, lift heavy team last year, and that came up short at semifinals. She was kind of a last minute addition. And talking to some people that know the density team, they're like, yeah, she kind of came in last minute. She's not fully up to speed with the training. and being in like game shape. So, you know, that's some positive things. Event 4 men's final heat is in Oceana is on now. Let's switch over
should we do
to
live commentary on Twitch?
no, let's not getting any more trouble. Let's switch to individual field. Men or women, Brian? Your call.
Let's go to the men.
Okay, men it is. All right. So let's talk. Do you want to? Yeah. I mean, we could talk
Well,
overall or
I
event.
mean, first of all, big picture. Yeah, big picture for today. Someone from Europe actually messaged me this, and it was funny that they sent it to me because I was just in the process of having the same conversation with someone here on site. Is that the floor here is not the same length as the floor in Europe,
Yes.
and I'm not sure if it's the same as the one in Oceania. And we've been saying that the first workout is something that you cannot compare across region for obvious reasons. But it turns out that on paper today, the men broke the world records for events 2 and 3 7 cumulative times. So 3 of them,
Mm-hmm.
the top 3 guys had beaten the world record on event 2, and the top 4 guys beat the world record on event 3. But I was actually talking with James Sprague, who set the world record, the new world record on the event number 3 this afternoon, and he said he thinks it's probably like 20 to 30 seconds. I was approximating about 25 seconds, so it's basically the same difference across that 7-round workout. So 3-4 seconds per round, that might be different. I think he would have got the world record either way. I don't know about the other guys, but I think it's good to kind of keep that in context. CrossFit will be posting and have posted those world records. I don't think they'll necessarily account for that, those differences in the field lengths, but it's cool to have a world record, but it's also obviously that there's not just the difference of having an extra week to prepare, of watching your peers and being able to maybe refine a plan based on what you saw that worked or didn't work, but also having a field of play that's not the same size. And I think that will be obvious tomorrow when they do the handstand walk, because in
Mm-hmm.
Europe, where they were able to handstand walk the entire distance down the floor, I think they're going to have to do additional turning here, which again changes the workout.
Yeah. It was Asia was a little bit longer than what we saw here. So yeah, it did seem kind of short compared to some of the other ones, especially Torian. Just watching a handstand walk of for in Oceania. It looks a little bit long. It looks a lot longer than what we have here in Carson. So, trying to, but start off event 2. Event 2, we kind of previewed that already.
Patrick, do you have
Really, yeah, we brought up event 2. Huh?
Can you hear me?
Oh, any new? Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah. It didn't seem. It seemed like yeah. It just seems like the connection is bad, which is frustrating me.
Are you connected to the hotel Wi-Fi?
No.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh. You can
Anyways,
answer
we
this
can
one.
address this about Bill. Yeah, we can talk about Bill. I had a chance to talk to several people, including his father. Um, I mean, pretty much immediately, his dad had said it's either an ankle or an Achilles. Turns out it was the Achilles, and obviously it's a withdrawal for him. So he's gonna. He won't be competing this year. I don't know what the process will be. There are some slow mo videos going on about the. It happened basically on a box step down, which is kind of funny. It's not funny, but it's ironic, I guess, to think about, because that movement is specifically put in place to prevent Achilles injuries. And it's noticeable. It actually happened up the calf a little bit, is where you could see it happen, and I can't believe jumps after that happened, and then walk himself off the competition floor. So you could see his face on the competition floor that he was devastated and maybe in disbelief a little bit. But the fact that he continued to do that, I think he still placed like 6th or 7th overall in the workout, despite those last 5 reps taking 30 seconds. Yeah, it's disappointing. Obviously, there were high expectations for him. We don't know. And now we just don't know again. Last year we didn't get to see because he was sick. This year he has a pretty brutal injury. It can take up to 18 months sometimes to recover and get back to where you were from that kind of injury. So sad for Bill Leahy and for fans that were looking forward to seeing him. We always say this: it's sports, things happen, and for me, you got to start asking some questions. Like, they put this safety standard in here of stepping down from the box, but they don't put any standard in of coming down from the rope climb, and there's no additional padding down there. And these guys are racing, and the points are really expensive. We're going to talk about it, that people are sliding across the line in nearly every heat because they're so close, and those 3 points might be the difference between making it to the games or not, because that's just where we're at with the sport right now. And so of course they're going to drop from the top. Like, they're trying to get the fastest time that they can. And in the meantime, we've had standards in the past that show an extra tape line where you have to show control below it. And some of the guys are out there doing that. They're dropping down, grabbing right before they hit the ground to reduce the impact, which I would recommend. If I was coaching any athletes, I would say, hey, learn this technique. Do not drop from the top. I don't care how much faster you think it is. It's not faster than hurting yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I think Mayhem has perfected like the speed rope technique that the military uses, where they just they speed down. Sarah's really good at this, Sigmund's daughter, where they clamp down, halfway, and then they, 1, 2, and then it's not a jump down, it's more of almost a step down with that. It's just not taught. A lot of people are just, they think they're athletic enough that they can just, they're like, oh, 14 feet isn't that high, but yeah, it's just unfortunate for Bill. And that's one of those injuries. Like I said, I mean, he's an explosive athlete. He's a former basketball player. It's going to take some rehab. Obviously we see like someone like Aaron Rodgers, he was back throwing a football, running around in a pocket after like 6 months. But, it's different when you're a CrossFit athlete and you need that explosiveness when the Achilles is so much. I mean, what's going to happen? I mean, I think the mental recovery is probably going to be more than what he'll have to deal with. Is like, jumping off a box. You talk to someone, if you talk to anyone, we know someone, Joe Jennington Palawa, our coworker at the Morning Chalk Up. It took him quite a couple of years to even, look at a box again and jump on or step off. So, yeah, but yeah, so that's what's going on. Obviously, we hope. Now it looks like Jay Crouch is going to win event 4. Bailey, I would say Bailey Martin. That guy he's going to catch Ricky, I think. But Jay Crouch won the event. Spoiler.
Are you watching it?
I am watching it.
Okay.
And
right.
Ricky did edge Bill. Did edge Bailey right there at the end. So. But yeah, Jay caught up. I mean, it looked like Bailey Martin was kind of running away with it. He's so quick on his hands, but it looked like Jay caught up on the row and had a pretty sizable lead. And and by then it was just too late for Bailey even to catch Ricky. But anyways, moving on. Men's side, event 2, Colton Mertens. We kind of discussed that. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to event 2? I mean, just regarding this field. Anything that sticks out? Now we kind of just see this. Both of us see this.
No, I mean, on paper, I think pretty much everybody who knows Colton Mertens was looking at this workout and thinking this was not just going to be an event win, but likely a world record and probably one that wasn't going to be broken even next week. So that remains to be seen. But the fact that he wins it was not surprising, but it was, of course, impressive. The guy's just when he gets a workout that is right up his alley. It's one of the most impressive things to watch. He looked like I honestly think he could have gone faster if he needed to, but he didn't need to. There was a really good battle between Justin and Pat. Medeiros usually doesn't give very much away in terms of placements relative to his heat as workouts progress, but he did drop a spot to Mertens and then a spot to Vellner after taking an early lead. Still a 3rd place finish. Justin's having a great weekend, and he's in the mix to potentially win this weekend, which is really cool. Yeah. Cole Sager coming 4th. We spoke to Cole today. The guy is just, he just can't. He's like BKG. You just can't count him out. You just can't bet against him. Look at him. He's sitting 6th overall. All finishes inside the top 10. Obviously we got half the workouts to go, but um, and he's down here on his own. He has a young child, I think 2 months old, that's back home with his wife, but they're watching from home. So Cole's doing his thing here, and then he'll go back to what he calls his little corner of the world in the Northwest.
Yeah.
Um, good day. I think good start to the day for both Brandon Luckett and Tudor Magda. They needed that.
Mhm.
Ride a little bit of momentum, put themselves in the conversation for the rest of the weekend. Chris Ibarra was the guy that we had our eyes on in terms of how was he going to answer after having a phenomenal performance yesterday on a running workout, and he answered really, really well. He's in that last heat, looking left and right against all of the guys that we would expect
Yeah.
to be there and that we would expect to be there at the end of the weekend. And he's holding his own. He also has all top 10 finishes. He's still holding down the fifth place overall. And, when you're able to do that in a field that has such a top heavy hitters in terms of the Fikowskis, Fowlers, Maderos, Quants of the world, and then this next group of people like Sprague, Mertens, Sager. And then you have some home run hitters, the Grease Sabers, the Magdas. So it's really been impressive. And Chris Ibarra to me is the male right now that I'm kind of thinking has the best chance to be the upset pick of the week here in Carson.
Yeah, I mean, and we had a lot of people call us out on that. Part of the Chris. I mean, we get that a lot of time, especially when you put out picks. We have like a lot of people who are, they see the guy at the gym or their fan club or whatever, and he was one of the consistent names that came up. Was Chris. I will say this, Justin. This is the Justin we're used to seeing, seventh, third. I mean, this is the Justin Medeiros that won the games. Didn't win any single events, but he's there. He's just in the hunt. He's in the hunt, and that's a dangerous Justin Medeiros. He's feeling his groove. He's feeling his. It's great. As for Cole, I mean, I almost think that Cole is he's going to have one bad event, and even that bad event isn't going to be a bad event. I mean, he's going to middle probably in that speed ladder, but I think the other two events he's going to be fine. Um, you know, so this is looking really good for Cole because I think there's going to be a big separation from those Cole Sager and everyone else because already it looks like there's some separation between sixth and seventh and eighth. But I did like what Colton had
Couple
to say.
couple
Oh, go ahead.
couple comments here about Chris Ibarra. Yes, Chris Ibarra competes in a couple off-season competitions every year. Besides Monster Games, he also does Desert City. He does very
Mhm.
well at those competitions. But he's always had his eyes on the semis, on the chance to qualify for the games. And I think that this is a perfect example of something that Patrick and I talk about all the time, which is if you're making semifinals, but you're not making it to the CrossFit Games, and that's your goal, pick a couple off-season competitions and do them because it doesn't matter. Obviously it's if you can get an invite to Dubai or you can qualify for Road to the Invitational, that's amazing. But even so, I would say that what Chris Ibarra is learning by competing and winning and having success and being in some kind of close races, there's not because those competitions are somewhat similar to this in the sense that there
They're
are
close.
only a couple guys that can actually win that competition. And so you have to go up there and you can't afford to have a bad event. If you're, let's just take Garrett Clark, for example, that's qualifying for Rogue Invitational and going there and you're just finishing in the bottom 5 on every workout. I don't know if that's as valuable. I mean, it's cool, but I don't know if it's as valuable in terms of transitioning into having the success at the semifinal stage that Chris is having. So that's why Patrick and I always make ourselves available and always encourage athletes, no matter how the CrossFit Games season goes, to seek out a couple of those competitions. Pick one or two, put them on your calendar, go out there, test yourself, and those opportunities can transition into having successful semifinal performances. And so far, Chris is doing that.
Yeah, it's all about getting reps. In any other sport, it's about getting reps, especially if you're a backup. If you're a backup in backing up a position or whatever, you want to get as much playing time as possible. And the best way to get playing time is to compete. So that's what they're doing. I mean, nothing in your gym that you train at. It doesn't matter if you even if you do have fire breathers in there, compete, like games athletes at your gym. Nothing's gonna replicate that than actually doing a competition, because what you'll have is you have judges, you have corral times and stuff, you have just media running around. There's just so many obstacles that play in that, and the main part is just the recovery. I mean, when you're competing every day, um at your gym, even with other great athletes, you're not doing the recovery that you normally would do for a competition, the eating and stuff like that. But whenever there's a competition, all these guys dial that in, that they're thinking about that. So I think Chris is a perfect example of that type of athlete. And it's shown. Again, he looks very comfortable out there. You know, he's not, he's not looking at across from him or left or right and go, oh, that's Justin Medeiros, and I'm going to go out hot to try to beat him in that first round. He's playing his game, and it's lead to an eighth and a seventh today, and that shows me a lot. Because conversely, you look at someone like Max Krieg, he's sitting in a good spot, 11th, but look at him, at 8th, 28th, and 8th. Maybe that 28th, maybe that's something where that wasn't a particular good workout for him, but he probably did get caught in the flow. I saw it a couple times on the women's side where today, where they're running someone else's race, and then they run their race, and then when we talk about again, we'll talk about Kyra Milligan, but she's another good example on the female side, someone similar to Chris, but maybe doing higher level competitions. But she started off doing these like regional competitions.
Patrick, I think you were going to say something about Colton earlier. I think
Yeah.
this question kind of can play into that.
Yeah. So at the when he won event 2, he got on the mic. I don't know if you guys heard that interviews, but he's been using his platform in such a good way, and it's really comforting to hear him talk about. But he's he had a really good message saying that people counting him out, that he's the underdog, that he's been busting ass for 3 years to try to prove people wrong, and he's like, this is what he's here for, and it was a really good message. So in terms of cheering him on, that's one reason why to cheer him on, because he has those grassroots. It's someone we can relate to. You hear the term people's champ. I think he is that guy that's deserving of that title, especially from the Midwest. And how is he going to do tomorrow? I think he's going to have maybe at least one really good event out of the 3, and then he'll have a decent event, and then I don't know. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Brian?
Well, my thoughts in terms of his interview today is, if I were him, I would feel the exact same way. But
Yes.
when you're looking at it on paper, he has qualified for the games 3 times, but he's barely qualified every year. The last spot, the second to last spot, a few points, tight margins, and every year at semifinals, there's 1 or 2 workouts, and every year at the games, there's a couple workouts that he does really poorly on. And in fields like this, where if you have 2 workouts that are pulling down your score like that, he had one today on the legless rope climbs. Granted, it was better relative to the field than it was 2 years ago at the Granite Games. If you guys remember back to that, he was in a really comfortable position. He finished dead last on the finale, or maybe 29th out of 30 on the finale. That was the regional 2014 repeat. And he dropped down to 5th, and he barely beat Nick Matthew. Of course, Phil Toon ended up failing his drug test, so then it looked a little bit more comfortable on paper. But the margins are always small for Colton at the semifinals. And then at the games, once he gets there, there's a more breadth of a test, and he's getting better every year. So there's no doubt about it that Colton is getting fitter. But there's also, really, when you look at it on paper, there's no doubt about the fact that semifinals is not a guarantee for him. So I don't know who he's not necessarily talking about or referring to when he makes that comment. But completely objectively speaking, he's a it's going to be a tight race for him. So when you look at tomorrow's workouts, rowing and handstand walking, it's a rowing and handstand walking workout. I would, and Colton for the past few years has improved on the machines at an incredibly impressive capacity. We saw that during the open workout where he was, he wasn't really giving away too much on the road to Justin Medeiros, and he had a
Yeah,
pretty good score relative to the world on that workout also.
Yeah, and Justin's one of the best when it comes to rowing.
So I think he'll have a decent finish on that workout. I don't think it's going to be a top 5. I don't think it's going to be outside the top 20. Probably be 12th to 15th, which is totally fine. The snatch workout is the biggest question mark tomorrow. I think that he is in a good place to execute that workout. That workout is it's probably the strangest workout of the weekend in the sense that there's going to be a huge spread of times. The handstand walking workout is going to be tight. 10 spots could be 10 seconds. You guys just got to watch an epic showdown of three of the best in the world do it in Oceania. But remember back to Europe where, Aniola Kai finishes last in his heat, in the final heat, but he was under 8 minutes and he was happy about that. And it was a 20th place finish, 10 seconds faster, he was 11th. The snatch workout is completely different. There are going to be a couple freaks in this field that obliterate this, just like Bronislaw did. We know who they are. The Tudor Magdas, Brent Fikowski's going to smash that. Medeiros, Fellner, Quant, Grease Haber. Like, there's going to be some times that are flirting with minutes and under. And then there's going to be a few times underneath 7 minutes and a lot of times between 7 and 8 minutes, and then it'll taper off on the other side. If Colton's just in the mix on that, and to do that, it basically means don't miss any reps on the snatch, don't go too early, don't get caught up in whatever anyone else is doing, which he rarely does.
Yeah.
Then I think he sets himself up really well for a final that even though there's that bike buy-in, I think that he's probably going to handle the lunges better than most people expect. He's got big hands and strong legs, and he has a really tough mindset. And I think that those three things, when it comes down to it in that workout on the lunges, which we saw in Europe last year, can be a huge separator, will work in Colton's favor.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be I mean, there's no denying we've been talking about that those last couple spots. It's going to be a tight race, and I think he unfortunately he might be in there because he's already in that position right now. Standing in eighth. That obviously the legless workout really kind of set him back a little bit, but it'll be interesting. But so event 3, let's really dive into event 3 here since we didn't really get to talk about it too much here. You called it, James Sprague. You're wearing the jersey. It was great. I got some really cool video of that. He just looked like he looked too comfortable out there. I don't know what I mean by too comfortable. He's just like it just I don't know.
Well,
It was just
I think it's a
he
good.
made it look really easy.
Again, yeah, I don't know what the perspective is that's being shown on the broadcast, but it wasn't a guaranteed victory. Like, Medeiros came out hot and he was putting pressure on James early. Vellner moved up and he was putting pressure on James in the middle of it. I was actually sitting next to Matt Torres during the workout, and he was happy about the fact that there were some guys kind of pushing him, and he was curious and excited to see how James would respond to that. Despite the fact that James is coming into this, he's already called his shot. He's basically told everyone, I'm going to win this workout. I'm going to set a world record on it. If you have that mentality, and he's still a relatively young guy, and you're out there on the field of play, and two of the best in the world and the best that have ever done it are kind of pushing you like that, you can lose composure. But James can lean on the fact that he's been in that situation before. In fact, he was in that situation yesterday against Fikowski. He was in that situation in Wadapalooza against Fikowski. He was in that situation against Cole Sager at the West Coast Classic 3 years ago. And so he's been on both sides of it, where he got beat at the line, where he wins at the line, where he's had some of the best names in the history of the sport pushing him on workouts that he knows he should be good at, and he doesn't buckle under that pressure. And he's actually gotten better at maintaining composure. He was getting faster in the last round. I think, unlike yesterday, where he was spent to win that workout, I think he could have done more if he needed to in the last round. But by that point, he'd asserted his dominance in the 6th round, and he was able to just kind of ride that into the 7th round and come away with another event win. And even if the floor was as long as any floor in the world, he would have had the world record on this, just like Colton would have on event 2. Those two performances today are notable, remarkable, and I don't think anyone's beating him next week.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Yeah, I mean, just that event. I mean, obviously the guys you expect to do well in that event did well. Vellner, Medeiros, Fikowski. I mean, these are some of the best in the sport. Maybe they don't have that. I mean, they're just all around.
This is cool. Some of the picks that these guys had.
Yeah.
Lynn said she had Justin picking for the win. Didn't see Sprague winning it. Renata said she had Pat. And that's cool that you guys are getting dialed at the people that can do the best. I think on the shot caller side of things, I'm doing extremely well out here. I had James and Emily on the first one. They were first and second. I had Colton and Ariel for the event 2, and then I had James and Alex Gazan for event 3. So I think it's going all right.
Yeah. I haven't looked at mine. I'll look at it
Um,
later.
looking further down the board here from Sprague, obviously we have those guys. Fikowski, another solid finish. We talked about what happened with Bill, Sager, Ibarra, solid again. Max Krieg keeping himself in the conversation for sure. Greasehaber, nice. He told us that, hey, let me just get through 1 and 2, and then we'll move on up from there. And sure enough, he comes out and has a good performance on event 3. And I think that tomorrow, I saw this comment earlier about Tudor Magda, and Lynn being excited about what Tudor's going to do tomorrow. I feel the exact same way for Cole Greasehaber, and Cole Greasehaber's in a better spot, 10th overall right now than Tudor is. He's amazing on his hands. It's going to
Yeah.
be they're going to be in the no, Cole will be in the last heat, so he won't be going head to head with Tudor Magda. I was kind of hoping they would end up in the same heat because I think one of those two guys will end up winning the workout. And obviously it's a little bit of an advantage if you know who's what the time is to beat, but they're both extremely good at that movement. They're both good snatchers. I think they can both have a top 10 finish on the snatch, a top 3 finish on the handstand walk, and that'll set them up both for good positions going into the final.
Yeah. I mean, Tudor,
Ooh,
we could
HDR
talk about
CBD
too.
throwing down the gauntlet here. He thinks Madero shows everyone who the 2-time champ is and tomorrow and wins the West. I think I actually picked him to win the West in the Heat 1 app
I think I
after
did
finding
too.
out how sick I changed it after I found out how sick Vellner was this week, but Vellner's looked like himself. I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
concerned about him being sick at all, and he's going to be tough to beat. I think it's going to be one of those two guys, but Medeiros definitely has a chance.
Well, according to Marty Vellner, he's fine.
Got to hang out with Marty again today. If you don't
I
know who that
saw
is,
that.
we got an
Yeah.
interview with him up on Instagram. It's Pat's dad. He's a cool guy, and he's a big fan of the sport. Actually, he was like
Yeah.
delving into some of the
Very.
stats. He was aware of all the world records. Like he knows what's going on. It was fun to hang out with him. Some of the other guys that had nice performances there, I would say Dylan Gibbs was a huge surprise for me here. A really nice performance.
15.
Don't know a ton about him, but he looked really solid in this workout, which was good to see. Trayvon Benton is making his way up the leaderboard a little bit, a lot better today, but still need to make some improvements tomorrow. Brandon Favory was my deep pick for that one. I put him as a sleeper this morning. He had an 18th, which was his best finish so far. The kid's young, and he's showed some really good ability to pace workouts. Jacob Schmidt had a poor performance on the latest rope climb workout. I was surprised how many pulls it was taking to get him up to the top of the rope. He has a lot of experience on a team. He's been a top 10 on a team at the games before, so you know that they have to do Lagos rope climbs. But I guess that's just one of the weak spots in his game. And actually, we talked to Daniel Coots today. It was very cool to talk to him. He's not having
You did. It was
the
awesome.
best weekend necessarily on paper, but he didn't really train for this year. He's had some other areas of
Yeah.
focus. He didn't really expect or know if he'd be able to qualify. He's trying to work really hard, pay off some student loans, and I think it sounds like next year he's going to move to Mayhem and kind of double down on his investment in the sport and give himself a year or two to go after it. So the fact that he's not really prioritizing this and is still out here competing, having a good time, getting those reps in, learning some stuff, that if he's able to make that transition and kind of go all in for a year or two, he's a guy that we might be talking about next year at this time that has a chance to make a rookie appearance at the games.
Yeah, definitely. It was great. Anytime you can see him, and he came, he walked up with us, and it was just like he was like a ray of sunshine. He was smiling, just having a good time, and just a really pleasant kid. He's from Mississippi, and he was talking about like the Knoxville, the East region, 3.5 hours from where he lives, but yet he has to fly across country. But he still said he enjoyed it. He's like, I would have never passed up this opportunity, and I'm thankful for it. That be here in Carson, to spend a couple days on the beach, so he's just got the right attitude for it. And I really like that kid. And so if you ever get an opportunity to meet him, yeah, he's just say hi. He's a really cool dude. Yeah, I mean, I got about Colton, finishing 24th on that. That, obviously it hurts him a little bit, puts him in that spot. Tetlow is on the leaderboard. I mean, very similar build type of athlete. He's in 15th overall. Took a hit on that event. And then yeah, just some of these other guys, just the one thing I wanted to talk about is Tudor. We talked about, he had a
Okay.
32nd, and he's currently in 18th. We brought it up, like what's kind of like the maximum place they could get with the remaining like 5 events, because if you have two misses, you're pretty much screwed. And do you think that
Well,
19th is going to end up?
no, I
Okay.
think this day was totally fine for him.
Okay.
Because I'm expecting him to have two top 3 finishes tomorrow to start the day. So let's just say
Okay.
worst case scenario that's 185 points that he's adding to his score in 2 events going into the final. That's going to put him in the conversation. If you're gonna, that one is in the rearview mirror. The 19th I felt like was salvageable. Tudor's he's not gonna take a top 5 spot here, but I think he absolutely has a chance to take that 8 or 9 spot. And I think it's gonna come down to the final. Like those 2
Mhm.
workouts to start the day tomorrow those are Tudor Magda. Like, he's gonna crush those workouts. Um,
Yeah.
the final workout is it's a little bit of a crapshoot. It's such a fast workout. You can go too hard on the bike and have it cost you on the lunges. Some people were surprisingly good on the lunges last week. Some were not surprisingly not good on the lunges last week. I don't know how Tudor's going to do on the final workout, but I think that his opportunity to make the gains is going to come down to that singular event at this point.
With that in mind, is the reseeding sim is Europe just once tomorrow? So, I mean, will we have an opportunity for Tudor to be in that final heat?
I haven't asked. I would assume it's the same, just because based on the timing of when they do that and the break in the day
Mhm.
that they schedule. I think the scheduling is the same as it was in Europe. So reseeding, uh, yeah, I would expect them to reseed after 4 and not after 5, but we'll have to wait
Yeah.
and see.
Which is for someone like Tudor, even if he wins, depending on all the people ahead of him, it's going to be hard for him to be in that 10th heat. So that's one of those things where he'll be in that heat before and kind of watching his fate unfold, which is, it's got to be, I forgot who I talked to last year. It might have been Annika Greer. I think I talked to Annika Greer about the kind of just like, or Ashley Wozni as well, kind of just watching that unfold in front of you, knowing you put out your best shot. Halpin, yes, the final heat for event 4 stacked for men, all multi-games athlete, and Ibarra, which I don't think it's going to phase him. You know,
No, unfazed today for sure, and I think that he's ready for the challenge. So we're at the halfway point. He's doing extremely well. Um, and he's been a pleasant surprise. I think he's going to stay in the fight. I see, Lynn has been saying that she doesn't think any rookies are going to make it on the men's side. Um, there's usually a surprise, but this field is pretty top heavy. So Chris will have his hands full, but he's doing very well so far.
yeah. And we're looking at the races here. Obviously, there's a race for the podium, and it kind of looks like it's almost I would basically say it's probably a 4-person race for the podium between Vellner, Madero, Sprague, and Fikowski. Um, Currently, just looking at this, obviously, there's 300 points online, but I mean, that's a pretty stacked field there, of veterans who know how to navigate, on with 3 workouts, and they're all singular, pretty decent in all those movements. And then you have, and
I
then you
think.
have,
I mean, I think that if you're looking at the podium, I think it's going to go Pat and Justin 1, 2 in some order, and Brent will take the 3 spot. I think
yeah,
James will slide down a little bit
mhm.
on the snatch tomorrow and take him out of the podium mix. And you know what? Velner Medeiros Fikowski on the podium, not that surprising.
Yeah, that almost sounds like a games podium, almost. I mean, we've come close to that podium. um, and then I think I agree with that. I think James will have a pretty comfortable spot there. He won't be worrying too much. Then in that 4th or 5th spot, and then you have Chris, Cole, Sam, Colton, Brandon Luckett, and Cole all fighting for basically spots 5 through, what is it, 8?
They end up getting 9. They'll get 9 spots. Yeah,
9,
the
sorry,
men will get
9.
9.
8 on the women, yeah, 9. And you throw in someone like Krieg, and again, you brought up Tudor. I mean, there's man, Tomorrow's gonna be exciting. I'm sorry, it's like crazy.
Should we switch over to the
Lynn,
women?
yeah, Lynn also really proud of Brandon Luckett. Yeah, he's a good guy. If you've ever had a chance to meet him, just awesome. I think he's really taken his fitness up a level this year. He's been flying a lot to Vegas, training with the Underdogs crew. He's actually been kind of basically been like the de facto training partner for Kyra. Um, I think it was Luckett that announced it on Sevon's podcast. Kyra wouldn't say who that team was. But it was supposed to be, I guess, Brandon Luckett, her, Allie Weiss. I'm trying to remember who the other guy was, um, but yeah, that was originally the team, and they all did so well, and they decided to just go individual. But that kind of leads us into the women. All right. On top of it, let's talk about. Um, well, we'll get to that. Event 3. Alex Kazan, no surprise there. She just looks so smooth. I think she had a little bit of a hiccup on one the no rep, I think on one of the box jumps, but obviously she was just on another level when it came to that rope climb.
Yeah, and considering what Sprague and I had talked about today, maybe 25 seconds being favorable for them compared to Europe. 25 seconds added to her time would give her the exact same split times as Emma Tall at a 10:42 mark. So you're talking, I mean, Alex Kazan on paper should have won this workout, should be flirting with a world record, if not setting it. She has the current world record. Maybe it's a little debatable about the circumstances, but she wasn't really being pushed either. I think that similarly to James, if she needed to, she could have gone a little bit faster in round 6 and 7, but she knew she was taking the 100 points. She was, and she was competing. Actually, she was competing in Heat 3, so maybe she didn't. She did push it a little bit harder.
Well, no, not really. I mean, it was basically I talked to Bethany Flores because Bethany finished second that heat, followed by Kyra, and she finished a minute ahead of Bethany. And Bethany was like, "I knew Alex is going to win that. I mean, it's Alex Kazan and rope climbs." Like the Bethany said, really the only reason why she even kept pace is because she was just better on the bike, and she was a beast on the bike. And then Kyra was right there, so we're talking, yeah, a full minute ahead of someone in that. So wasn't really getting pushed at all. She was running her own race.
Very strong performance by the Canadian women here, and we're going to just talk about the Canadian women overall having a really good performance so far. Emily Rolfe taking second place, the second place she's had in the competition. Lindsay Martin bouncing back from a really tough event number 2, 32nd with a third, and she's a good example of what we could potentially see for Tudor Magda. She's sitting in 9th overall right now with 2 top 5 finishes and a finish outside of the top 30. So that's what if he does in fact have 2 top 5 finishes tomorrow on events 4 and 5 to balance out the 34th from event 1, he might be in a similar spot right about that cut line. Haddie Cano is the overall leader in the competition right now, and she's had three no event wins, 3rd, 7th, and 4th, very very consistent. I spoke with Tristan today. He's our coach, and at the end of the day, and yeah, he thinks that he was giving me some information. He said she's really fast on her hands. He said that she's more than capable to have a competitive time on the snatch ladder. So I don't know if Haddie Cano will be able to hold on to the overall win, but she is, for me, the Chris Ibarra on the men's side. Only she's doing better, and I feel like her chances to make the games are a lot better than his because of how strong the men's field is, how good she's doing so far. But both of them are athletes that are not like they're not. It's not crazy for them to be in these situations. We had thrown Haddie Cano's name around as someone who could be the upset pick out here. There's a couple
Yep.
others that we mentioned as well that aren't necessarily doing that as good as her right now, but they might have a better back half of the competition. Um, but Haddie is, she's a well-rounded athlete. She's a veteran athlete. She's an experienced athlete, and she had a couple really, really close finishes today. Like if you look here with how we have it sorted, she edged out Abigail Dommett by like 3/10ths of a second. And if you were to sort by event 2, she lost to 2 athletes by basically the same amount of time. This was happening across the board today. There were a lot of tight finishes and a lot of heats. Yeah, she took 7th, and if she was 6/10ths faster, she would have been 2 spots higher. It's 3 or 4 points per spot. We know that at the cut line, there's going to be a couple points separating someone going to the games and someone not. And in a lot of these cases, I mean, Ibarra got beat right at the line by Fikowski on one workout today. I think the legless rope climb workout. Um, and he passed someone in an earlier one. Haddie Cano, a couple close calls. Abigail Domet was in the mix on was in the mix on a couple of those. Those margins will add up and will be meaningful for someone on the cut line tomorrow.
Yeah. Like we mentioned, Bethany Flores, Kyra Milligan. I mean, a year ago, this would have been a bad workout for Kyra Milligan, but she ran her own race. She did not try to keep up with Bethany on the bike. She just ran her own race, didn't want to burn out. Very methodical in that nature. Bethany was kind of the same way. She just wanted to stay ahead of Kyra. They're familiar with each other. They both used to be partners or used to be at Underdogs at the same time. Person I want to point out is Kelsey Keel. What a performance! I mean, she was in that second heat. Yeah, I believe the second heat, and she pretty much dominated that heat. And she's someone that
It was,
traditionally has had.
it's
Go
an
ahead.
interesting thing before we talk about her specifically, because you only
Yeah.
have one workout on the first day. You get this big spread of where the big name athletes are. It's
Mm-hmm.
just dictated based on their ability on that one workout. And after two events, everything changes. And even with two data points instead of one, a lot of the more recognizable names filter to the top. Some people could look at that and say like, it's a little bit frustrating, and it's like, why is
Mm-hmm.
Spiegel and Mikulishin and Kerstetter and Keel all the way down here, and Fuselier and Gazan and Flores and Milligan, none of them are in the top heat. But on the other side, what you have is you have more relevant heats on day two, in
Mm-hmm.
both the men's and women's side.
Yes.
So anyway, go ahead.
But Kelsey, what a performance! She's someone that traditionally, she's had struggles when it comes to upper body pulling, and she was really proud of that. And I overheard her talking about, I've been wanting to show that off for a while now. So bravo to her, her coach, Coach L, the brute strength people. She looked good. I mean, she's a a strong, big athlete. I mean, her muscle weighs a lot, and she did a great job. I really commend her. Stacy, she's kind
No,
of a veteran. Go ahead.
no, just to stay on Kelsey for a second, because the Buttery Bros are here following around a few athletes. Kelsey's one of them that they're trying to tell her story this weekend, and they keep asking
Mhm.
me if she's got a chance. And I said, you know what? I think she's got a fighting chance. That's what I said today.
Mhm.
She went out
Yeah.
there. She impressed me. She did better than I thought she would on the legless rope climbs. They were giving me a hard time because yesterday I said I didn't think she'd make the games. And they're like, you said she wouldn't make the games. And I'm like, well,
She,
fighting chance doesn't mean you're going to make it. But
yeah.
that was a lot. I mean, I didn't think she'd have a top 10 finish on that workout.
Uh-oh.
And I was
I
watching
don't.
her, and there were other athletes that started really well and faded throughout their
Yeah.
heat. She didn't do
Danny,
that. She
Danny
stayed
was
steady. She had a
Danny.
great performance.
Yeah. Yeah. Danny specifically, she started off, her and Kelsey were kind of going head to head right there, and she kind of wore him down there at the end. Um, but no, you're right, Kelsey. I mean, she has a chance tomorrow because again, I mean, she has a handstand walking event that again, that's another thing that she struggled with, specifically at the games last year. So we'll see how she does on that. And then obviously it goes right into the clean ladder. So with not the clean ladder,
Snatch.
I'm sorry, the snatch. I keep on saying clean snatch ladder, which she'll probably be a top 5 finish in that, if not win it, and then goes right into the final event, which I think she'll do fine in that final event as well. So it's going to come down to that final event, not just for her, but a number of other athletes. So I think tomorrow's first workout is key for her. If she can do a little bit more damage control on that one, or have a top 15 finish on that, I think she 100% puts herself in the discussion of possibly, like you said, have a fighting chance.
Let's look at the overall standings for the women after the second day, after 3 workouts. As we mentioned, Haddie Cano is in the top spot. Alex Kazan, no real surprise there. Third and first today, moved up to the second spot.
Caitlin.
Caitlin Bernard has
Wow.
stayed, yeah, she's stayed very, very steady. Mike had told us that event 2 would be a good one for her. He also said that event 3 would be a tough one for her. He said that anything inside the
Uh-huh.
top 25 she would be happy with. Well, 18th, I think it is. 10th, 10th.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
10th.
phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know this. Haddie Cano is not like blowing my mind that she's doing well. Caitlin Bernard and doing
Yeah.
this well through 3 events, very impressive. So
Yep.
let's see. I did talk to a couple of people. I think she should be fine on 4 and 5, and I think that this is going to come down to event 6 for her. We saw what happened with Colin Bossard last week. That you can have 5 good events, and if you just implode on the final, everything can come unraveling. And the list of names behind her is a pretty stout list of names. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Doman, I think, is actually poised for a run at the podium. Rolf and Lowen also can make claims for the podium tomorrow, depending on how they do. Bethany Flores, obviously, if she's healthy, is really difficult to take a game spot from. And Kyra's looked great. So those people that are right stacking up behind her, you could see her dropping a few spots tomorrow, especially if she has a bad workout in the finale.
Yeah, I mean, look at those names you just listed: Emily, Ariel, Bethany, and Kyra. I think Kyra is poised for a huge day out of all 4 of them. In terms of she's actually gotten really good at her handstand walking. She's an excellent rower. Event 5, she'll do really well in the snatch ladder, better than those 3 athletes will. And that last workout, I think she'll crush that one. I mean, she'll probably do all 15 muscle ups unbroken. The bike will probably she'll manage the bike. I think Bethany or Ariel or Ellie will probably be off the bike first. But I think that she'll do a lot better on the muscle ups. And then when it comes to the lunges, I think Kyra might have the upper advantage in that. I mean, Emily might be better maybe because of her size and her just her just she's just a taller athlete. I think that but at the end of the day, I think Kyra is actually in a better spot of all those 4 athletes you named, and I wouldn't expect. I mean, I don't think it's going to come down to the final workout for Kyra. I think she's going to go on that final workout in a pretty comfortable spot.
V, were you surprised by Ariel's performance on Event 3 PC? You want to talk to that?
Event 3. Well, not really. I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I thought I didn't think it'd be a 14th. When it comes to the bike, she's just that's a hand that it's a legless workout. But for these top athletes, it's more of it comes down to the bike. Because outside of Alex Gazan, all of them are pretty much same skill level when it comes to legless. It's all about how much power they can get and out of that bike. And I think Ariel was just kind of pacing herself, or maybe she wasn't. I don't know, but she just seemed like she was lagging a little behind. And when it came to her legless rope climbs, she was doing like, I guess just more pulls than necessary that you would not necessary. Maybe for her it's not necessary, but than other athletes. So she was a little bit slower when it came to those two movements.
PC, let's scroll down just a little bit on the leaderboard. We see Lindsay Barton and Janice Chevery, 2 other Canadian women that are inside the top 10 right now. Janice is only 21 years old, so she's got a lot of upside looking potentially. Rebecca Fuselier, who was being asked about here by Megan, had a nice day today. Incredible performance on event number 2. Pretty solid performance on event number 3. Her entire capacity to make the games this year is going to be probably come down to the snatch, but even that last workout with the lunges, we'll have to see. But she's put herself in the mix. She's put herself in the conversation. She needs to have probably another top 5 finish. I think the row handstand walk is a potential for that, but there's some pretty good athletes in this field overall that could also do well on that one. So 11th place halfway through is not a bad spot to be. If you're a Rebecca Fuselier fan, I think she's got a shot tomorrow.
This was really rough on Carissa. Just watching her on that last event today, it was really heartbreaking because we know she's a hell of an athlete. And she just struggled. It was hard to watch.
Yeah. For someone who's as experienced as she is and been competing as long as she has, I mean, I was standing with Tommy Marquez during that workout, and he's like, "Hey, legless rope climbs have been at this stage of the competition for 10 years." She was multiple rounds behind her entire heat on that workout, so that's
Yeah.
that's one of those things where it's such a glaring hole or weakness compared to what we've seen otherwise that you wonder if just one of those skills and athlete combinations that she can be practicing it as much as she wants, and the progress is just very gradual and slow. But it was a notable outlier compared to what we've seen so far. Obviously, 39th right there. I think she's going to bounce back from that and have a couple good performances tomorrow. So I don't necessarily think she's out of the running. In terms of this entire field, I would say all the way down to maybe, man, I don't know. I don't know if McAlishan can do it from 20th.
It's hard because if
Yeah, that
250
seems like a big gap.
Yeah, the 30th, and then two back-to-back 15s. That's that's hard to come back from, and I hate to see that again. That's 20 points behind Trista Smith. So and that's, I mean, that's, what is that from a qualifying spot? That's 210 to, you're talking 64
You're
points.
talking 33% of the points that she's behind there. I still think that athletes like Spiegel and White, they need some home runs. Spiegel especially should have similar performances to Tudor Magda on the first two workouts. She's in a similar spot to him on the leaderboard, and I think they'll have a similar trajectory today heading into the final event. So I think Spiegel definitely has a chance. Emily White did not do as well through the first three workouts as I was expecting her to do. So I would say that maybe Spiegel is kind of an exception because of how good she is at a couple things. Other than that, I think Kelsey Keel and above are the women that actually have opportunity to sneak into the top 8 tomorrow, which is what they would need to do.
Yeah, something to kind of look forward to, look ahead to, is if there is a reshuffle, if there is one before the the snatch ladder. You're probably looking at Kelsey Keel, Danny Spiegel, Emily White, and in the same heat, which that'll be fun to watch. And
Yeah,
we
because
got
all of those women can go easily sub 6 on that, potentially flirt with 530 and less. And we'll see if anyone can track down Elisa Fuliano's 501 from last week, which was mind blowing, quite frankly.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw, but we did put up the Trista. We were able to talk with Trista Smith today, and I mentioned it yesterday, and I think you got to see it today. It's like her poise, her professionalism. I mean, she's a games athlete. I think she's a future games athlete. Not this year, but she's a future games athlete. And we had a chance. The interview's up on Instagram. We put it up there. I mean, any other opinions on Trista or thoughts on Trista Smith?
No, just been impressed. She carries herself very well for someone that's so young. She credits her team. She credits training with Justin and learning a lot from him. Obviously, he's one of the few athletes in the history of the sport that's won this thing 2 times over. And yeah, that kind of execution and poise from an athlete at that age on a competition floor is a really good sign for things to come.
Yeah. And on the other side is another team alum. I Olivia Kerstetter just the last 3 workouts just been just bad for her, and I hate to see it, but yeah, I mean, she's another one. If with maybe with a good
she got a pretty costly she got a pretty costly no rep on one of the legless rope climbs, and to me, just watching her, I was right down by the rail with Dylan at that workout. It kind of looked like the reality set in for her in the middle of the workout that she's probably not making the games this year.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but the good news, I mean, something, not the good news, but I think she'll have a good workout tomorrow. Well, middle of the pack workout. I think maybe she cracks into that top 20, which that'll set her up in that heat with Danny Spiegel, Kelsey Keel, and this another person that knows how to snatch, and it'll be fun to watch. And we talked about,
and I think that even if it doesn't make the CrossFit Games, I think this is still a good opportunity for her. We talked about it maybe even earlier today that there's going to be adversity when you do a CrossFit competition, and even if you realize, what, I might not be making the games, or I don't have a chance to make the games this year, I still have a chance to go out there and fight. I still have a chance to go out there and compete. I still have to go out there and test the things that I've been working on. And I think that we'll see that from her. I think that she'll still go out there and have a good performance on event 4, have a great performance on event 5, and she'll climb up to maybe even 12th or 13th by the end of the day, and kind of be in a similar situation to what Jonikoski was last week, where at some point he realized that he'd made too many mistakes, he'd given away too many points, but he still went out there and fought. And she's very young, and if she's able to do that tomorrow, then even if she doesn't qualify for the games, I think it's a good sign for her, again, going forward into either off-season competitions or, future game seasons.
Brian, can you talk about Brittany Chestnut for a second there?
So we had an opportunity to interview her today. We were kind of clued into a pretty cool story that she has from an old competitor of hers in Carleen Matthews, multiple-time games athlete. And
Shout out, Carly.
And if you were to go look at her Instagram, Brittany Chestnut's Instagram, you see that it basically goes silent sometime around 2019. She'd been competing at regionals going back to 2014, and she opened up and was super vulnerable with us today. I would encourage you guys to go watch that one, because this is not so much of an athletic accomplishment, although what she's been able to achieve athletically and competitively is insane. It's more of her talking about just overcoming a really difficult life circumstance. So she had some kind of weird things happening to her in her life physically. She didn't know what it was. She pursued medical information. She ends up getting diagnosed with bipolar 1, and I think she said 3.5 years figuring out how to manage that.
Yep.
Her CrossFit Games profile, there's 2 of them. One goes from 2014 to 2018. There's nothing from 2019 to 2022. And then she started competing again last year in the Open. And this year, she's all the way back to making it to a semifinal. And we've talked about the fact that in 2014, there were 420 spots in North America. Now there's 80. And after all of that, she has a 9-year-old kid. She has this bipolar 1 diagnosis. She's had all these challenges in her life, and somehow she's made her way back out here, and she's doing it again.
Yeah, it's very good. I recommend you watch that. It's on our Instagram. It's only about 2 minutes, so it's really cool. And yeah, as someone that suffers from some mental health issues, it's just really cool to see her kind of take control of her life. And yeah, I think it's definitely something that can inspire some people out there. Kendall Gilmore, the teenage athlete, 17-year-old from Las Vegas, 9th, 36. I thought the 24th, she showed a lot of guts doing that. She started off a little too hot maybe, and then had the crowd behind her on that workout. So that was kind of cool to watch. Devin Kim, a name that we both had high expectations, came into this, hadn't worked out in a month. Just dealing with a back issue. And of course, in typical Devin fashion, she's fighting. She actually she did a good job. I think she won her in 3, and then she finished second or third in 2. So, for her, I think right now she's going out there just trying not to hurt herself, but at the same time, just get the experience. Same with Allison Scuds. And Morgan Porter, someone that I know as well. Real good finish on the leg list, former gymnast. She really happy about that finish there. There's not the best at biking, but overall that's about it. So that's the field. Again, some great battles tomorrow. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. There's some of the best guys in the world, best guys in history that are competing for those podium spots on the men's side. And then we have some, up and comers that are doing really well on the women's side, battling for podium spots. The cut lines are going to be dramatic. We know how much things can shift after watching week number 1. And I would expect that there's going to be some big moves up and down the leaderboard, tomorrow as well. But yeah, pretty good day number 2 here. And I think setting up for dramatic Sunday in the tennis stadium.
Yeah, can't wait. We'll be there. It'll be awesome. So make sure you tune in. We'll have some recaps throughout the day. Quick peek over Oceana on the women's side. It was Gracie Walton just crushed the field in 4. I mean, we're talking a full length. She just looked, those are two great combinations for her. She might end up winning event 5, if not her, maybe someone like Julia Hanford. Um, um, so it's going to be a battle for that number 1 spot. I mean, the thing is, like Maddie, here you see first, third. I mean, she's not going to have probably a finish worse than third in the next 2 events. So I don't think that's going to
Yeah, but
be
but
even with
Gracie hasn't either so far.
exactly. But it's going to be a great race. And then there's 4 spots there, and Daisy McDonald, she's second in that handstand walk. She looks solid right now. And then there's kind of a big drop off. So that last spot, we're looking. I mean, Georgia Pryor, someone that I've been high on for a while, like keep an eye on. Obviously she struggled in event 1, which is kind of on me because I didn't think she was that bad of a runner, but she's bounced back 5th, 3rd, 6th. If it weren't for those workouts, she probably easily, she middles that, finishes like, top 10, especially in this field. She's in that 4th spot comfortably. Instead, she's fighting for it with basically, and 4 other athletes. Caitlin Van Zyl, man, I think she's too big of a hole right now. I don't know if that's the snatch. If I don't think she, I don't think she's going to do enough on the snatch ladder to make up some of those points. And then event 6, who knows?
Yeah, I think that you're right about Caitlin there. Georgia Pryor was, I think I had picked her actually to come in the 4th spot. I think she will end up taking one of the game spots. I'm not, Daisy McDonald has been super impressive, so it's hard to bet against her at this point. So I guess if I was going to make any projections about the last 2 workouts, it would be that Georgia would overtake Danielle Ford for the last game spot.
Mm-hmm. And we're talking, these are some young up and coming athletes. Well, Danielle's 28 for New Zealand. Georgia, I believe, is 22, 23, 24. And yeah. On the men's side, as expected, just look at that. It's ridiculous.
Yep. Well, there's no one to come in between them. So it's just basically 3 guys fighting against each other. Do they have a 4th for Jay, a 4th for Ricky, and and 2/3 for Bailey? I mean, 2 people out of the rest of the 37 athletes there have been able to beat one of these guys at any one of the 4 tests so far. So the margins, between the 3 of them is really small. Jay has a 3-point lead over both of them right now. I don't know. I don't know who's going to win it. They're going on the day will finish today over there. And but at the end of the day, it's fun to watch, but we know that those 3 guys are amazing, and we know that we expect them all to make the games. And then the real questions will come for them. The 4th spot for the men is where the real battle is and the real question mark was. Peter Ellis is continuing to hold it down, but I think Luke's beaten him on the last 2 workouts, and he's closing that gap. Luke is pretty, I think that, man, I don't know. My is still Luke DeYoung to close it out, but Peter Ellis has been impressive, and I know Zane's right there, and no one else is even close. I don't see Zane passing both of those guys, so I think it's going to come down to Peter and Luke, which is more, especially with Zach Thomas out of the equation, it's basically what we expected.
Yeah. We briefly team. They're taking 3 teams out of Oceana, and both are Mayhem teams. One with our good friend Con, who looks like this year Con will not be a part of our coffee with friends because he's punched his ticket back to the games and he's going with the green. And then I forgot that they're Mayhem Thunder. So how fitting is it that Con had a hammer? I don't know that. I don't know if that was a prop or if that's something they gave them. Yeah, maybe they did. Which that's kind of yeah. Either way, it's still cool. And then Torian Mayhem, it was a good fight between those 2. 4-point difference, and then obviously the 3rd best team by a pretty decent margin is So
I had
welcome to the
actually
CrossFit
picked
Games.
EXF fourth. I had the Awa side 64 Army team is who I had projected third, and they ended up finishing sixth. But EXF was the third best team across the weekend for sure, and they'll be sending in a team back to the games again.
Yeah. Oh.
Who do you think will do better in event 5 between Luke and Pete? I was gonna say Luke. Just I think he's a pretty decent snatcher, but
Yeah.
Peter Ellis is strong, man. I don't know. I think they're gonna finish within 2 spots of each other on that.
I think it'll be close between those two. I think Zane might have a possibility of middling them, but I still don't think that's enough for him. I mean, it's unfortunate because I would like. I mean, Zane's going to be at the games. It's whether he'll be there as a competitor or as Gracie's coach because that's his partner. Zane's a really good guy. I really am rooting for him. I mean, those aren't bad finishes. 6th and 9th, 8th and 8th. It's pretty consistent. Whereas some of those guys at 10th and 11th, be in their worst places, But yeah, I think it'll come down to Peter and Luke, and I know that you've known Luke, or you're Luke the Young fan, and it'd be kind of cool, former teen athlete, kind of see him break through.
I'm a Peter Ellis fan too. It's just I've known Luke for longer, and
Yeah,
I think that some people have kind of written him off. I mean, he didn't even want me to include him in the top 200 in the off season. So
what is that question there? Yeah, we will see. We will see. Luke gives me Sprague vibes, and Sprague is the best center. So hopefully, my intuition proves wrong. Yeah. So, that's all we got for tonight. So what time we starting up tomorrow, Brian? What time we got to be there? I think I screenshotted the schedule somewhere.
I think it's at 9 o'clock. I'll just give you
Yeah.
guys real quickly. Event 4 tomorrow. I think Grease Saber, Tudor Magda, Justin Medeiros are guys to watch. On the women's side, Ariel Lowen, Danny Spiegel, and Haddie Cano are my kind of picks to hit for that one. Event 5, Matt Tudor again, Fikowski, Vellner, and Jacob Marlowe is my sleeper pick for this one. Pretty
Ooh,
strong
I
man.
like that one.
If he's going to have a good workout, it's going to be that one. And on the women's side, you previewed it. There's a potential for Spiegel, Kerstetter, Kelsey Keel, and Emily White to all be in the same heat, which will not be the top heat.
I know.
And those are probably 4 good picks there. I don't want to make any picks for the final because similarly to the team side, a lot of it depends on kind of where you're at and how much you have to risk. And I also think it's probably the most difficult workout to project because that lunge is so wild. But if I had to throw one name out there that I think is going to do well in the final, I really like Medeiros for that, and I like man, I don't know on the women's side. Either
I like
maybe Kazan.
I like
I don't know.
I like Cole Sager on the men's side. I'm going with the I'm going with Cole
3 minute
Sager.
workout. 3 minute workout at the end of a regional or semifinal weekend. You can't go wrong betting on Cole Sager. Good call,
Nope.
PC.
Yep, I'm going with him. Who are you saying on the women's side? I mean, who are you saying on the women's side?
I just think probably one of the fittest athletes here in general. So you either see so this is Lynn's throwing out Sam Quant for event 6. I thought that too until I spoke to someone and they said probably not. So I'm going with Justin Medeiros. For the women, I think it'll be for the women, I think it will be either Ariel, Alex, or you know, just one of the top women. I don't think there's going to be a surprise on that side.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it'll be pretty. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. So first event, 9 a.m. Pacific. We'll be there a little bit earlier than earlier than that. We'll be able to provide. What we'll do is we plan on having a quick Instagram live recap after event workout 4 of the men, and then workout 5 of the men, and then and we'll fall in line after that. But so we appreciate everyone that tuned in. Especially the early part of the show, as always. I think that's all we got going on for tonight. I'm hungry. I know, Brian, are you hungry?
Absolutely.
All right. So a lot of stuff to do. If you're watching the Oceana final. Have some fun doing that. We'll also recap a little bit of that tomorrow. So, thanks again for joining us, and be friendly, our friends.